Strange day. Stuff that's supposed to work doesn't work.
Yeah, we had a pretty decent power surge earlier, and I think it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Okay, so until I can get the Facebook phenomenon fixed, I think the easiest way for you to be heard here on Tall Tales is to just give me a buzz. Now, I'm going to really miss your comments because that's an extremely important part of the show. But I can't pull Facebook up on either. I can get the point, but I can't get today's program on either my laptop, as you were, my iPad, or on the studio laptop here. Strange thing. Okay, so we're talking about Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes, and of course she's right in line with many of her colleagues. We've had a year to prepare for this, and I wonder if Tina is so concerned. She says, in case of cockfighting, nobody sought the input of the people of Guam. So Tina, what's your record on communicating your concern with anyone outside of the legislature? I think I know, but maybe you could tell us. And the legislature, of course, early on adopted a resolution saying that enforcing of the federal ban on cockfighting would be the lowest priority of the government of Guam. So you almost need Jacques Picard here to plumb that depth.
Right on. And Facebook should be working now. I had a technical issue over here. I had to work that out, so we should be good to go now.
Yeah, there I am. Biggest life, twice as ugly. Thank you, Michael. All right. So, so the legislature, the Amanda Shelton resolution enforcing this cockfight ban will be our lowest priority. And, you know, as I said, you need Jacques Picard and his bath escape that goes to the bottom of the Marianas Trench to find out just exactly how low the government of Guam's lowest priority is. Is it lower than the priority that they've attached to fixing the Guam Memorial Hospital, or making the streets safer, or the Department of Corrections more correct? And then, of course, there's the nasty fact that the government of Guam has no real role in enforcing the statute anyhow. So that was kind of a nonsense line. It will be our lowest priority. Although I suppose it played pretty well with the peanut gallery. Then we had the governor come along and say, I'm not going to enforce that. And then the next day she calls in the mayors and tells the mayors, don't be asking me to issue any permits for cockfights during your village fiestas, because I'm not going to issue any anymore. So with talent like that, Lulian Guerrero, when she's no longer governor, could perhaps be a ventriloquist, a puppeteer.
Mm-hmm, indeed.
Because she could talk out of both sides of her mouth. So it's been a really dismal performance on the part of our government. We've had Tom Poole, a regular caller here, a veterinarian, in fact, the territorial veterinarian, call in and say that he has to approve the importation of live animals to Guam, and he wonders if he approves the importation of male chickens, is he complicit in violating this federal law? And, of course, nobody in the government of Guam has given any thought to this at all because they're too busy pandering and posturing.
Yeah, they're preparing for FESPAC.
Exactly. And I've heard some people say, well, if I owned 100 roosters when this law comes into place, what do you think I ought to do to dispose of these roosters? Can't eat them. They're really not edible.
No, they're a bit gamey.
And loaded with steroids and antibiotics and things like that. So does the government have a disposal plan to deal with these chickens? And the other items that will become contraband on Friday, like the knives that you attach to a chicken's leg, will the police department accept those from you and give you a receipt to show that you could show that you complied with the law? No, we're too busy showboating and grandstanding. Then we had the best one of all is Bill 185. This is the bill from Sabina Paris and a raft of co-sponsors, and it's her pause bill, and it's a Be Kind to Animals bill, and it defines or it criminalizes animal fighting, and I'll read what it does. No person shall cause, sponsor, arrange, hold, or encourage any animal to fight, menace, or injure another animal for the purpose of sport, amusement, or pecuniary gain. This section does not apply to cockfighting that is authorized by law. And then it goes on to a rather definite definition of cruelty to animals. If any person who is knowingly present at or wagers on such an occurrence of fighting, menacing, or injuring for the purpose of sport or amusement or pecuniary gain, owns, trains, transports, possesses, breeds, or equips an animal with the intent that such animal will engage in any occurrence of fighting, menacing, etc., knowingly allows any such occurrence of fighting, menacing, or injuring for the purpose of sport, amusement, or pecuniary gain to occur on any property owned or controlled by the person. This is a well-drafted piece of legislation. I wonder who did it. It isn't the usual junk that comes out of the legislature with an effective date and a severability clause and contradictory content. So it's got all of those things. But here's the real hooker on this one. There are defenses to being prosecuted for animal fighting. And on page 21, you'd find that the punitive section shall not apply to, 1, proper shooting or taking of game in such manner and at such times as allowed or provided by the laws of Guam, so it doesn't apply to a hunter. 2, cockfighting in a manner and at such times and places as are authorized by law. Okay, so it exempts cockfighting in manner and in a manner and in such a way as is authorized by law. So this is a 46-page bill, and it really socks it to anybody who would be cruel to animals. That's Sabina Paris's bill. But then it says it exempts cockfighting in a manner and at such times and places as are authorized by law. So all animal fighting is really, really bad, and we're just not going to put up with it. But we'll make one teeny exception, and that is a cockfight authorized by law in a place at such times and places as are authorized by law. Now, a minute ago, I told you that Lulian Guerrero said, I ain't issuing any more permits to village mayors for fiestas. So that's off the table. And then yesterday, I read an article that I dug up from a year ago, a Kevin Kerrigan article. Kevin has a lot of credibility around here. He's an alum of the Tall Tales College. And this article says, no valid cockfighting licenses issued on Guam. No valid cockfighting license have been issued to anyone on Guam, and the Department of Revenue and Taxation does not send collection agents to any of the many unlicensed cockfights routinely held around the island. There is no valid cockfighting license right now, said Cockpit License Board Chairman Earl Garrido, because there has not been a cockpit board for more than 10 years. That's how you can tell it's an important part of the culture. that this board that regulates cockfighting has been out of existence for 10 years, that there have been no licenses issued for 10 years. And not too long ago, Garrido and the other two members of the Cockpit License Board resigned. So what that means is there can be no cockfighting in a manner and at such times and places as is authorized by law. So you don't have to enforce the federal law, Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes, Lourdes Afligui Leon Guerrero, just enforce the local law, because an unlicensed cockfight is against the law. Okay, so I'm not quite finished with this. I got to take a short break. I'm going to come back to the other Leon Guerrero, and then I noticed that Michael has opened the Tom line. So I have a Tom. Is that our Tom, Michael?
It is, yes.
Okay, so short break, and we'll be right back.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by KFC. Every Tuesday, KFC's got 20 pieces of wings for just $15. Get this special offer for a limited time in every location. Anigua, Barragana, Denado, Tamuning, Jico, GPO, and the Micronesia Mall. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie also brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So a little Christmas music here. So I'm going to take this opportunity for the first time on Tall Tales to wish everyone out there in our international radio listening audience a Merry Christmas. I know it's not Christmas yet, and when I say Merry Christmas, that is a precatory statement, meaning I wish that you would have a Merry Christmas. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so Christmas music is over. We've been talking about cockfighting, and I've got the other Governor Leon Guerrero on the line. What can you tell me about cockfighting, Ken?
I sat next to Tina Muñoz Barnes at lunch today, and she tried to engage me on the subject, and I told her that it's not something that I'm interested in, and I have no opinion whatsoever about the cockfight. And although listening to her reminded me of the testimony Benita Manonia did at one session where she said, "Which law do you want me to break?"
That was Kathy Kakigi. Kathy Kakigi's kerfuffle, yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of reminded me of that, because today I was at the Decolonization Commission's Independence Extravaganza to discuss the future economic and business opportunities under the Independence banner. And
Okay.
Sadly to report, there weren't any. Basically, it was just the talking heads of the different task forces stating their positions, drawing their lines in the sand. They had a panel of business people up there, but there wasn't anything for them really to say or do. So it was kind of disappointing. I thought it was going to be more interesting. What was really interesting was the lack of attendance. You know, I don't think there were 50 people there.
I wonder.
I mean, once again, the independence movement is not as strong or viable or deep or passionate as a few people claim it is.
I wonder if the independence folks are as numerous and passionate as the pro-cockfighting folks on the island. I have a feeling that they share the same amount of participation. In fact, they might even be the same people.
It might be, but what was very, very clear to me is that, this was, it was a opportunity that could have been really valuable for the conversation in the community, and it was wasted. First of all, the status quo task force wasn't invited to participate, so I'm feeling a little slighted there. But even several of the people that did speak talked about how if the status quo isn't offered as an option, according to several attempts by Puerto Rico, it's not going to have any credibility with the U.S. Congress. So we keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and eventually it's going to get costly because patience will run out, and then somebody will file another lawsuit against the commission, similar to the Davis lawsuit. And they'll lose because they steadfastly refuse to fix the laws to eliminate any discriminatory languaging.
Could it be that the folks that draw paychecks from the Guam and the Chamorro Independence Commission really don't want to see things fixed because they really like the status quo? They like being able to go to the Fourth Committee and stay in nice hotels and be able to apparently speak with authority on a subject and do a lot of demagoguing and
how decolonization will protect Guam from climate change. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about is Sunday we did have our first in history ever year-end review of the government, and it was well attended. There were a lot of good questions that were brought up.
I wasn't there, Ken, but I went to the first one.
I know. The one where I was dying.
Yeah, well, I couldn't tell. The only thing I got out of the first one was a cheeseburger. But anyhow, go ahead.
What I did is we recorded it and we put it online this morning. So for those of you who weren't able to get to Jeff's Pirates Cove on Sunday, there's a hour and 50-minute presentation online on Guam Citizens for Public Accountability, Facebook, and it will be on the guamc4pa.org later this afternoon when I finally get home.
No chance you could put it on YouTube, is there?
It is on YouTube.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, so if you go to the Guam Citizens for Public Accountability page on YouTube, you can watch it there, but I was also going to put a link to the YouTube video on our guamc4pa.org website.
Good. If YouTube, I finally figured out how I could watch it on my TV set. Much more enjoyable than watching it on a phone or an iPad.
Well, good, because one of the things that we talk about in the year-end review is we talk about decolonization and the futility and cost of making the same mistakes over and over again. And that's where we're heading, because right now, based on my FOIAs, Guam Election Commission isn't paying for this appeal. The Department of Administration isn't paying for this appeal. So I have been pointed towards maybe the Attorney General's office is funding the appeal. Because I want to find out how much more, because if we look at the Davis case, It cost about $2.5 million just in legal fees. And then the Davis legal team, I think they were awarded just under $300,000 for their fees for the appeal. So we figure the government of Guam has a matching cost there. So we're now somewhere around $3 million for the first go round. But the same flaws still exist in the law, and Melvin One Pat Borja refuses to allow the status quo task force to participate in decolonization commission events because we aren't listed in this bad law. We were in the previous law, but when they redid the law, they dropped status quo and Commonwealth.
Got it, Ken. I got that big halftime show coming up now. So I appreciate the updates that you've given us. And Tom, you're a pretty savvy caller. I suspected you figured that you'd ring off, and when the halftime show is over, you'll call back. And I hope you do, because we always enjoy your calls. And Michael Knight has opened the Tom line, so let's all enjoy that big halftime show.
Clean up from deadly storms. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. People in the Deep South will return to picking through the debris at daylight after severe storms slammed areas from Louisiana to Alabama Monday, leaving at least 3 dead and a dozen injured.
First responders are still trying to reach hard-hit areas. The storms destroyed buildings, toppled trees, and downed power lines in several Louisiana communities before causing more damage in Mississippi.
Fox's Marianne Rafferty. The National Weather Service says it received at least 26 reports of tornadoes, and several of them have been confirmed. One cutting a path through Louisiana 63 miles long. Full House is set to vote on impeachment Wednesday and a trial in the Senate likely next month. Senate Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer.
2 weeks ago now, I told Leader McConnell I was ready to discuss trial rules. Instead of talking to me, he spoke publicly about what a trial may look like and said he was taking his cues from the White House. It was very partisan, very slanted, very unfair.
The chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Republican Lindsey Graham, expects the trial to end quickly. Bipartisan negotiators in the House and Senate put forth spending bills that would fund the government through next September and prevent a government shutdown this week.
The package includes more than $1 billion in border wall systems, an increase in $22 billion in defense spending, and a pay raise increase for military members. In addition, a provision raises the legal age to purchase tobacco products from 18 to 21 and provides $25 million for gun violence research, overturning a 1990s law effectively blocking federal agencies from researching and engaging on gun-related issues.
Fox's Jared Halpern. America's listening to Fox News.
We can't buy this house.
What?
It has 4 bathrooms. Just think of all the bathtub rings, water spots, and stains, plus the cleaning products I'll have to buy.
Didn't I tell you? The house comes with a non-electric Connecticut water treatment system. We'll have clean, soft water throughout the house, protect the water-using appliances, keep the tub, showers, and sinks looking like new, and help our skin, hair, and clothes look and feel great, too. The house even includes a Connecticut drinking water system.
A Connecticut system in the house? We'll take it.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
The Trump administration says people will get more time to sign up for Obamacare health insurance following a spate of computer glitches over the weekend. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services says the new healthcare.gov deadline is 3 a.m. Eastern Time Wednesday, and coverage will take effect January 1st. U.S. Marines' annual Toys for Tots drive is going full force in New York City.
So what we have to do now is go through each of these toys and figure out what the age and gender is, and we go ahead and sort those toys in these aisles over here.
Staff Sergeant Robert Backus is on a mission. By the end of their assignment, this warehouse will be filled with thousands of toys, all to be screened, sorted, and selected. The goal is to give out more than 170,000 toys to the disadvantaged kids, hoping Santa will remember them on Christmas Day.
Derry Alexander with Fox 5 in New York. Now, those Marines are from the 6th Communication Battalion based in Brooklyn. Social media apps are among the most downloaded this decade, according to new research.
App analytics firm App Annie revealing the most downloaded platforms of the 2010s. Despite privacy concerns in recent years, it seems Facebook was downloaded the most, Facebook Messenger the second, Facebook's WhatsApp Messenger in third, and Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook, in fourth. Snapchat rounding out the top 5, Skype, the wildly popular video app TikTok, UC Browser, YouTube, and Twitter make the top 10.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. And a police detective killed by 2 people who targeted a Jewish market in New Jersey will be buried Tuesday morning. Detective Joseph Seals from the Jersey City Police Department was a married father of 5. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
We understand what matters to you because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by KFC. Every Tuesday, KFC's got 20 pieces of wings for just $15. Get this special offer for a limited time in every location. Anigua, Barragata, Dededo, Temuning, Jigo, GPO, and the Micronesia Mall. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie also brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years. You're listening to KUSG Hagåtña.
So Michael had a ringside seat. Well, not a ringside, a box seat for the big halftime show today. He got to watch it from the press box here at Tall Tales.
It's much more impressive from up here.
Yeah,
It really
well, it's
is.
impressive anywhere, Michael, but more
smoke's
impressive from here from the press box, I
A lot
think.
of smoke, though.
Yeah. So I've got a little bit more on cockfighting here, but I see that I've got another Joe on the phone. This is not the real Joe Cruz, is it, Michael? No.
No, sir.
This is another Joe. Okay. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Hey, good Bob. So, Ken was talking about Munya Barnes not interested in talking about cockfights. So was that in context to? I think she also met with former President Obama today.
According to some news I heard on my way down here, yeah, she and the governor met with former President Obama.
I don't know that the impression is that they emphasize the cockfighting, or would it possibly be more about war reparations?
You mean her conversation with Ken or her conversation with President Obama?
I'm going to prioritize the president, the former president, because I'm curious why she's bringing that particular issue up. I just, it just happens that she brought it up to Ken. But do you think that's what she was talking to the former president about, or?
I really doubt it. I really doubt it. Although it seems that is the penchant for those in the legislature right now to talk to anyone who has normal hearing about cockfighting, because that seems to be the thing they want to talk about more than anything else. But I don't know that she talked with President Obama about it. And I'm going to have to say I hope not, because there are a lot of people who get really cranked up about this cockfighting thing. And I've mentioned myself that I don't like the idea of our national government dictating local criminal laws. That should be for the states and the territories. But an argument in favor of animal cruelty is not one that I would feel very good making anywhere, to go before any kind of, go before a committee of the House of Representatives and say, cruelty to animals isn't always bad. There are times when cruelty to animals is a good thing. It's just not a winning argument. No matter who you're trying to argue with or who you're trying to convince, you're starting out in a deep hole. So what were you going to say, Joe?
I think this is just the time of the year close to campaigning for re-election that everyone wants to get as much publicity and face time as they can get. So they're scurrying all over the place. Oh, former President Obama, perfect time to get a lot of media time. Whether or not whatever the issues are, as long as they get face time and media attention, they're gonna run all over the place looking for that. But I don't know that. Does it make sense why the former President Obama is stopping over? He seems to have an interest in Asia. Is that what's going on, or
he's on his way to Malaysia, and he stopped here to refuel, and apparently entertained some local visitors while he was on the ground to refuel. For some reason, I didn't get an invitation. Another Joe.
So it's only Democrats that were invited then.
Do you think that's why I didn't get invited?
Well, did they invite former Governor Calvo Camacho? Who's it? Ada or even Calvo's father to meet with the former president?
I don't think they did. Yeah.
So it seems as though it was mostly Democrats. But
in that case, I'm kind of glad I wasn't invited. I wouldn't have fit in very well with that crowd.
I'm trying to figure out what is going to get traction here, because everyone's talking about, if it's not the cockfights, it's the roads. And of course, there's this thing where we're all holding our breath about the water reparations. So if they ever get, what is the timeline for the water reparations? Are we looking at another year to get an idea of where that's going, and then where does it go from there? Any clue as to the timeline for the reparations?
Well, my understanding is that the Senate is on the verge of approving what was Bill 1365 in the House. And if that's the case, then it'll go to the president, and I suspect that the president would sign it forthwith. After that, there's some paper shuffling that has to take place, and no one receives anything until that claims commission adjudicates the claim.
Yeah.
And so far, there are over 3,000 claims. I think they've only adjudicated a couple hundred of them. So it's not going to be an overnight process. It's going to take a little while.
So then after that, it's pretty much on the way, and everything's going the way we like it to go. Then the next issues up are the contract impact renegotiation, issues of road repair, of course, this cockfighting thing where for all intents and purposes, it feels like Gestapo or the commissar, or where we're supposed to report on our neighbors if they're cockfighting.
Joe, I just can't go along with that.
It just feels too communistic.
I don't see that. A private company is offering a reward. This is if you watch Western movies, that's been part of the American law enforcement system, going all the way back to the days of the cowboys.
A bounty.
Yeah. You see a sign posted on the door of the saloon: "Wanted dead or alive, Frank Miller, $500 reward."
So the cockfights are like the outlaw. The cockfighters are the outlaws of the Old West, so to speak.
So to speak.
And so the next question is, if they clean that up, it's okay. Cockfights have to be non-lethal, right? And you have to watch the number of rounds and the number of hits that the rooster gets. Would that make it more acceptable? Do you think, Uncle Bob? Or
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. There's a sport, quote unquote, called bear baiting. And you can put boxing gloves on a kangaroo and can box a kangaroo. But I think all of those things fall within the realm of cruelty to animals. And I don't know exactly where to draw the line, because of this organization, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, no more circuses, because the way animals in circuses are treated is supposed to be cruel. I have a hard time going that far. But I don't think having animals fight with each other could be seen as anything but cruel to the animals.
Yeah. Okay, Uncle Bob. I'll let other people call in, and obviously we're going to keep having to revisit these issues in different ways, unfortunately. But thanks for your time, Uncle Bob.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, another Joe. So, in the absence of the real Joe Cruz.
That's right. I mean, it's not a case of any Joe will do, but Joe is okay.
Maybe any old Joe and any Joe in a storm, right?
That's right.
Yeah, any port in a storm. Okay, so going back here to wrap up on cockfighting. So what we've had a year to prepare, and we've done no preparing at all. We've done a lot of posturing and a lot of pandering, a lot of blustering. Give me a break. So the game here seems to be, on the one hand, we've got the guy who's offering the rewards, and a few responsible heads in the community like Tom Poole and me saying, okay, it's the law. How are we going to prepare to deal with this law that's going to change the way we do business? Now, I don't like the idea of a national government imposing its will, imposing criminal laws on states and territories. I make that point almost every day on Tall Tales. It's one of the reasons we start out with the Second Amendment. So I don't like it, but I don't like anarchy either. And anarchy means that when a law comes along, everyone has a license to break it, especially people that we would expect to set good examples, like our elected officials. Our Attorney General says if anybody turns in the information to me, I'll forward it to the feds. Our United States Attorney says we're going to prosecute these things within the confines of our resources. Tina Rose Munya Barnes blusters, as has Amanda Shelton, and then I read you the portion of Sabina Paris's anti-cruelty to animals law, which is 46 pages long, and accepts cockfighting if it's legal in a place where it is legal. But we haven't done that for 10 years. It's so important to us that we haven't issued any licenses for 10 years, and we don't have a cockpit licensing board. So every cockfight held after Friday not only violates federal law, it violates local law. But we do have the overpowering desire to bloviate and bluster and and come along and make, sort of outrageous statements, rising to a level of self-righteousness that can only be supported by a truly righteous position.
Had a caller call a moment ago and said, what we really need to do is basically do the same thing we did with marijuana, recreational marijuana, and just pass a local law saying that cockfighting's legal.
Well, I'm coming to that because given the way Sabina Paris's cruelty to animals bill is worded, she's going to have to amend it because we don't have there is no mechanism for legal cockfighting on the island now.
Right.
We had a law. Mm-hmm. We had a law and the law is still on the books. You have a cockpit licensing board. You have standards. The board licenses cockpits. The revenue tax collects the taxes, but we haven't been doing that.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of passing a law because we had the law already. It just that we haven't, like so many other things, we haven't paid any attention to it.
Yeah, the working parts all broke down.
And then, of course, there's quite a difference between marijuana and cockfighting because as far as marijuana is concerned, there have been various amendments to budget bills that usually take the name of the sponsor in the House of Representatives. And the last sponsor I can remember is Dana Rohrabacher, who lost, by the way. But these bills prohibit the Justice Department to spend any money enforcing marijuana laws in jurisdictions where it's legal under state law. The law that we're talking about now, the federal law we're talking about now, is exactly the opposite. It's saying we're going to prosecute these things, and if it happens to be legal under state law, as Tom Poole points out, are government officials potentially complicit in the violation of the law. So that approach won't work, Michael. It's an interesting thought, but we're looking at the dark side of the mirror here. We're not seeing a reflection in the mirror. We're looking at that black side of the mirror here.
No, that's not useful.
Not useful at all. Okay, so have I got somebody on the line, Michael?
Yes, sir. We got Tom. He called us back.
Oh, good deal. Okay, I'm going to go to Facebook after this, but Tom line is open, and I've got Tom on the line. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, sir. How's the weather up there?
Yesterday I pointed out that Congressman Johnson is coming after tall people. Yeah, he said that he criticized President Trump with his meeting for the Prime Minister of Ukraine because he's so much taller than the Prime Minister that he must have intimidated him. So I was thinking when I heard that, I better start slouching a little bit more and perhaps start an organization called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Tall People because I can just see all of the oppression that's going to start now that the Representative Johnson let that particular cat out of the bag. You probably remember Representative Johnson has distinguished himself before. He is the representative that was worried about moving Marines to Guam because he was afraid that the island might capsize. It might tip over.
I remember that.
It's Hank Johnson, yeah. So he's out for tall people. So don't ask me how the weather is up here. I got to keep a low profile, Tom.
Anyway, I'm sorry I had to hang up earlier because I was full of it, and I had to go to the bathroom, but I had to flush 10 times. You know why? Long way to Pencil Neck Kitchen.
I think you're probably giving us a little bit more information than what we really needed, but thanks for calling, Tom. What can you tell me about cockfighting, Tom?
Well, my question is, aren't our lawmakers down there just wasting their time because it's national law already anyway? Why are they trying to make a local law about cockfighting when it's already national law?
Well, as I mentioned, we have local law. We have
on animal cruelty, right?
Well, we have local law that legalizes cockfighting, that establishes a cockpit licensing board to license cockfighting, and we have a tax regime that's supposed to be enforced by Rev Tax. But we haven't had a cockpit license board for 10 years. Shows you what an important part of the culture it is, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have a cockpit license board now. So Sabina Barris's bill that would exempt cockfighting from her animal cruelty law is worthless because we don't have legal cockfighting. So, and then Michael said that he had a caller who said, well, what we ought to do is the same thing that we did with cannabis. We should just legalize cockfighting here and ignore the federal law. But I explained that that won't work. One, for the reason I just mentioned, we've already got the law on the books. We just ignore it. And second, with respect to cannabis, we have the so-called Rohrabacher amendments that prohibit Justice Department from spending appropriated funds enforcing cannabis laws in jurisdictions in states where it's legal, whereas the animal cruelty law is exactly the opposite. I would suspect that the targets will be places that still have these laws on the books or are attempting to be scofflaws in the face of the federal law, Tom.
I kind of got off track there. I was trying to remember what I really wanted to ask you about. There's a question in my head, but I kind of lost it when I was listening to you. It still has to do with the cockfighting.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring it up again in my memory banks. But let me see. What else? What is it? Darn it, it has to do with the cockfighting law again. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and go for the break, and I'll stay on the line.
Okay, so
I have the music in the background.
Well, actually, Tom, I was just playing the thinking music for you so that you could, you could think through it. It's a Jeopardy thinking music. Maybe that would help you think of that question you were going to ask.
I'll tell you what, Tom, we're about, 7 minutes from the seventh inning stretch, Michael? 5 minutes from the seventh inning stretch, so I'll give you through the seventh inning stretch to think of it, and then call back, and we'll get you right back on the air, Tom.
Okay, well, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. Okay, so as I said, I wanted to take a peek at some of the Facebook comments here. Jesse Limpiaco has posted. He's always pretty good. And let's see what we got here. We got Chris chips in and says, who cares what she says to that loser, Obama? And then Ishmael Velez, I do not care for chickens. I do not care for cocks. And my little piggies are never covered in socks. I like to let them loose, so I always wear my Zoris. And never will you catch me telling cockfighting stories. I don't care for chickens, and I ain't faking. I don't care for chickens. I only eat bacon. So Ishmael is kind of running competition with Andrew to be the poet laureate of Tall Tales here.
Yeah, Ishmael's pretty good. He can spin a yarn.
He can indeed. He can rhyme. Then we got Jesse Limpiaco. The U.S. ended up conquering a vast swath of North America and basically told the Native Americans to go fly a kite. Oh, I can see where this is going to go. The U.S. government basically did the same thing to Native Hawaiians as they moved more west to Hawaii and claimed more territory. But on the bright side, at least the U.S. government is much nicer than Germans and Japanese, though. That makes a difference, A lot of your stuff you put up here is really profound, Jesse. And we've got Edwin Champaco Quitano. Man promotes cockfighting, but he does not make cocks fight. It is instinctual among such birds. Cruelty is when you force animals to do what they don't want, then die as a result with knives. Yeah, so I suppose you wouldn't find the United States Congress punishing people who have chickens in their yard and don't stop the roosters from fighting.
Right, yeah.
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 Yeah, that's kind of Elwin's, yeah, and you're right, Elwin. And Jesse comes back. The 17th Guam legislature established the Commission on Self-Determination, and the Guam Commonwealth Draft Act was subsequently approved by Guam voters and introduced in the U.S. Congress. To date, Congress has not acted upon the Guam Commonwealth Draft Act, and the island is political relationship with the United States remains the same as it did in 1950 with the passage of the Organic Act. Okay. Fine. More Jesse. H.R. 100, Guam Commonwealth Act, 105th Congress, 1997, 1999, introduced by Robert Underwood. I don't think it ever made it anywhere after its introduction. Maybe Judge Bob or our congressman can update us. Well, I do remember when our Commonwealth Act was introduced in Congress. I don't remember the details. A hearing was held in Honolulu, and Congressman Neil Abercrombie was somewhat harsh with our Governor Atta, who kind of presented the Commonwealth Act as a take-it-or-leave-it proposition. Our bargaining position was not quite that strong, and the Commonwealth Act never went anywhere. And had it gone somewhere, it would not have changed our political relationship with the United States. We still would have been an unincorporated territory, trying only to do what I keep suggesting. We should embrace the fact that we're an unincorporated territory and work with Congress to enhance our situation within the American empire as much as we can. For instance, we're talking about Medicaid. You know, maybe one of the things we should work on is to get Congress to agree that our Medicaid treatment would be the same as any one of the states. That is a reasonable, saleable argument. If you go to the Congress and say, hey, give us a break on this animal cruelty thing, it's not going to work very well. Ishmael Velez, who holds these positions on cockfighting board and such, and are they collecting a salary? Well, there's nobody on the cockfighting board. I read a story the other day where a guy named Earl Garrido resigned because of the federal law. And for years, no one was appointed to the cockfighting board. So most board members get a stipend of $50 a meeting, no more than $100 a month. But I don't think we spent a whole lot of money on the cockpit licensing board. So here we are then with cockfighting, and there's a real challenge now for Senator Sabina Paris with her Be Kind to Animals bill, her No Cruelty to Animals bill, which is extremely comprehensive. It goes so far as criminalizing bestiality. And if you're not familiar with that word, bestiality means humans having sex with animals, which apparently is not against the law now, but it would be if Paris's bill passed. So it's really comprehensive. But it does say that cockfighting, properly licensed in a place where it's legal, is okay. But that doesn't exist because we haven't done it. For 10 years, no cockpit board, no licenses, etc. So are you going to then, Senator Paris, remove that section and say cockfighting is okay no matter where it's done, even if it's would be against Guam law? Okay, so here we are coming up to the seventh inning stretch, and I guess we'll get Tom back on the line after the seventh inning stretch. So let's go to Chicago.
In life, we all have the ability to make a difference, to make an impact on someone's life. As we look around us, time never stops, but we are filled with endless moments of gratitude. The art of giving is incorporated in so many different ways. At Guam Gift Baskets, we want to be able to express your gratitude and love to those who you care about. Show your appreciation with a gift made with love this holiday season. Visit our website at guamgiftbaskets.com. See the smiles, touch their hearts, feel the experience.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Are you looking to create a breakthrough, to try something that may result in you getting to the next level? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, some thoughts on how you might do that.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Check out their seafood lau lau, a medley of salmon, shrimp, scallops, and fresh spinach wrapped in tea leaves. Steamed to order, topped with soy butter sauce and your choice of starch. Visit Mescla in Hagatnyap and Ellen Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Center field bleachers, Wrigley Field, Chicago. A beautiful day, a beautiful day for baseball. So, Tom, I hope you had a chance to do a little thinking.
I have Tom's question, actually. He called us back during the break and had the question.
All right.
And what he wanted to know is what would happen in relation to the cockfighting ban and the law that they've passed if the United States decided to enforce it in a similar way that they're enforcing certain immigration laws and things over in where they're punishing cities, counties, states for certain immigration violations and certain other laws that they break from time to time, certain sanctions that they could put against Guam for doing that.
Well, what Tom, I think, is alluding to is we have cities in the United States that hold themselves out as sanctuary cities, and what that means is that local officials are not going to cooperate with Customs and Border Patrol when it comes to capturing and et cetera, dealing with illegal aliens in their jurisdictions. Some cities have even passed ordinances outlawing their personnel to do that. So the first response from the national government was to say, if you do that, we're going to cut off your federal aid, which is another story. And that didn't work. It hasn't worked yet, not because it's not a sound idea, but because of the technicalities of cutting off the aid were not complied with. So it's something that turned on procedure, not substance.
Right. Okay.
So Tom's question is, what would happen if the feds took the same approach here?
Yeah, I mean, what if they decided to start cutting some of our funding?
Because we're not cooperating?
And based on some of the language we're seeing in the papers, we're actually saying, we're going to disobey you.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be so much a matter of disobeying as a matter of not cooperating. Of course, when people who attempt to do the blustering are inept blusterers, it's kind of hard to know exactly what it is that they are intending. When Amanda Sheldon says, this is going to be our lowest priority. Enforcing a federal law is going to be our lowest priority. That really doesn't mean anything at all. So, perhaps an English composition teacher could gigger, for writing nonsense sentences, but I don't think it would arise to the level that any federal official would say, we're going to cut off your Section 30 money because of it. Right. But it's an interesting question. Tom is always one to consider the ramifications of the silliness of our government. So thanks a lot for forwarding that, Tom.
Had another caller call in and said, if we were to cut the SNAP benefits, the game fighting for the birds would probably dry up pretty quickly.
No doubt.
That was his idea.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know that, I have mixed feelings about all of these things. I am a federalist, meaning I believe that our government should be a federal government, but it's not. It's a national government now. A federal government means that we have a federation of states, and each state is an independent, subordinate sovereign that is, tops within its own border on local laws. And our central government should only do those things that the states aren't able to do themselves. And these are spelled out in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. So that's what I mean by federalism. So one of the responsibilities of our central government, our national government, is immigration and border control. It's not a local responsibility. So if a local government doesn't want to get involved with it, well, that's federalism. That's kind of the price you pay for having a federal government. I don't like to see the bribing of states saying, if you don't do this, we're going to cut off your federal aid, or do this and we'll give you some federal money. I see this as a backdoor to interfering with state sovereignty. So an interesting idea, cut off the SNAP benefits. You're probably right on that. Okay, so let's see. I was going to wind this up by saying I'm going to be watching Sabina Paris to see how she navigates her animal cruelty bill through the legislature and how she will rise to the challenge of her exempting of cockfighting being a meaningless gesture unless she changes the language of her bill. And then I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to stop talking about this in a minute. I'm going to make a prediction about the whole cockfight kerfuffle. And my prediction is this, that we've heard a lot of crowing nice. About the whole cockfight kerfuffle. And I think when the first person is prosecuted for undergoes a federal prosecution based on this federal law, that a lot of our local officials are going to find themselves eating crow. That's my prediction. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. How will you be able to spot a senator as he's walking down the street?
How can you do that, Bob?
He will, or excuse me, they will be the people with the black feathers in the corners of their mouth. That's how it's going to. That's how it's going to wind up. Okay, next item on the card here is Neil Weir versus American Samoa. And we talked about this quite a bit already. And what involves is the United States District Court for Utah has ruled that people born in American Samoa are U.S. citizens at birth. Up until that decision, if a person were born, if you been born in American Samoa, Michael, you would not have been a U.S. citizen by birth.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
You would have been a U.S. national, and you would have had a special inscription in your passport that says, "This dude ain't a citizen. He is a national." Now, the practical effect of that would have been rather minimal because you could report to an U.S. consulate in a foreign country and still be entitled to consular services. You could show that passport at the U.S. border and you'd be waved right on through. But not being a U.S. citizen bars a person from certain kinds of employment in the United States. And probably all the states and all the jurisdictions in the states require U.S. citizenship in order to vote, except for California, of course. California probably is going to bar U.S. citizens from voting within the next few elections. And then nobody talks about this, but in order to be an officer in the United States Armed Forces, you've got to be a citizen. You don't have to be a citizen to enlist and serve as an enlisted man, an enlisted person. But you do have to be an officer, a citizen to be an officer. So some people in American Samoa are aggrieved by this, and they want to be American citizens at birth. 3 Samoans in Utah brought suit against the United States, and they won. And as a result of their winning, the U.S. government is prohibited from taking any action to show that people born in Samoa are not citizens. Passport has to change. The whole thing has to change. Now, the judge in the Samoa case put a stay on his own order because he knows that it's going to be appealed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. And, in order to avoid an undue amount of confusion, he put a stay on his own order. But if that order sticks, then people born in Samoa will be U.S. citizens at birth. One would think that this would be a cause for dancing in the streets of American Samoa. At least I suspect that's what Neil Weir, who has made a career out of bringing this kind of litigation, may have thought. However, this is not the case, because when that lawsuit was filed, the government of American Samoa filed a motion to intervene. You got your Law and Order notebook handy back there, Michael?
I do, sir. Yep.
Yeah.
Joe left it
hear
handy.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah, so if a motion to intervene means, let's use some letters. A sues B and asks for a particular kind of relief. C is not named in the lawsuit, but C could file a motion to intervene if C can make an argument that my interests are the same as B's, and a ruling in favor of A will have a serious impact on me. Or could move to intervene as a plaintiff, saying that the theory that A advances against B also lies in my hands, and I ought to be entitled to the same kind of recovery that A is going to get. So that's a motion to intervene. It's someone coming along saying, hey, Judge, I want to be a party in this lawsuit. I'm not named in the complaint. So American Samoa said, I want to intervene on behalf of the defendant, the United States. And the reason is that the government of American Samoa doesn't want to be, says that the people of American Samoa don't want to be citizens by birth. Mm-hmm. And the reason they don't want to be citizens, birthright citizen, is because they have their own way of doing things in Samoa. It's called Fa'a Samoa. And it's a system that has evolved. And small islands, Samoa is only about the same size as the District of Columbia. And their Fa'a Samoa system is tightly interwoven with their land tenure system. Our land tenure system is something we got from the British. That's why we have so many crazy names for what we do in real estate. Real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, royal estate. An estate is an interest in land. Right. Comes from the law French.
I see.
And, you don't own a piece of property. You own it in fee simple title. Fee being a modernization of the word fief. But anyhow, we got all of our land tenure rules from the British, and their rules worked pretty well in a place like Great Britain, and worked very well in the U.S. Not so well in a place that's the same size as the District of Columbia. So there is a complicated relationship with the land and families and clans and respect to the land and traditional chiefs that I don't have the knowledge or the time to go into. But the upper house of the Samoan legislature is composed of chiefs or people chosen by chiefs to serve in that legislature. The lower house is elected on a popular basis. So the people in Samoa are saying, if we're birthright U.S. citizens, we run the risk of losing all of this. The way we have done business for 4,000 years, and we're not ready for that. And you could also, of course, introduce the big C word here, which cockfighters would inform you is an absolute defense against any law. The big C word being culture. It's part of the culture. So I have a letter here from American Samoa has a non-voting delegate in the House of Representatives. So ironically, there could be a non-voting delegate from Samoa who is not a United States citizen. So let's go to Louisville, Kentucky for the call to the post, and I'll wrap it up here. We'll go from Kentucky back to Samoa.
Chili's 2 for $25 is back. Start with an appetizer to share. Then choose 2 entrees like our mouth-watering Old Timer with cheeseburger or the Cajun chicken pasta, grilled chicken with penne and Alfredo sauce, and chili spices. Feeling extra? Upgrade to a personal fajita or our famous half-rack ribs. Bring a friend or a date to Chili's and get 2 entrees for $25. Located on the 2nd floor of Tumon Sands Plaza. Chili's. More life happens here.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your fix every day with the Points NFL Pick'em Contest. Get the latest updates as we check out the past week's performance and break down the upcoming action. Get your game on by calling the hotline at 888-TALK or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome weekly prizes with a shot for your choice of a new GTA phone. The NFL Pick'em Contest is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Call to the post, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. So we use the magic Tall Tales transporter to go from Pago Pago, American Samoa, straight to Churchill Downs at the speed of light, or maybe even faster.
And you didn't even have a hair out of place.
Exactly. And now we're going to fly that one backwards and go back to Pago Pago. But I just got a couple of Facebook comments here that I want to read into the record. we've got Andre Bainham, who comes along talking about the low priorities of the government of Guam, apparently contradicting Amanda Shelton, who says that enforcing the cockfight, federal law on cockfighting would be the lowest priority. Andre says, I thought Sanchez was the lowest priority. Or maybe it was the health and safety. No, it's village roads. Yeah, good call, Andre. And then Sherry Iriarte has really kind of gotten into the spirit of this kindness to animals things that Sabina Paris is pushing. She says, but Bob, I thought crows are protected on Guam. How can they eat them?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It is valid. Yeah.
And the only thing I can say, Sherry, is this, that when Sabina's bill comes on for hearing, I will go and testify and ask for a second exemption that eating crows would not be seen as cruelty to animals, as it may very well become a political necessity for all of those people who climbed on Tina Rose Munia Barnes' gimme a break bandwagon. Okay, so American Samoa does have a representative in the House of Representatives. Her name is Amata Radawagan, and she has written a letter which I have in front of me. She says, we are disappointed by the opinion of the Utah Federal Court in the Fatisi Manu case. It will certainly come as a surprise to tens of thousands of American Samoans that a federal judge in Utah has ruled that they are now United States citizens. Because the residents of American Samoa have vibrant democratic processes and already had a path to citizenship that I had worked to make even more accessible. And here's how it works. If you were born in American Samoa, you can come to the United States at will. Stay in the United States for 90 days and not get in trouble, and you could apply for naturalization. Pay the fee, go through the process, bap, you're a citizen. Now, if you were to come from, say, the Philippines, you got to go through all kinds of different kinds of quota restrictions just to get to the United States as an immigrant.
Yeah, dealing with that, yeah.
Yeah, because every country has a quota of 20,000 people. And there are some exceptions for marriage, fiancé, et cetera, but you got to thread that needle before you can come as an immigrant. Once you arrive in the United States as an immigrant, the general rule is after you've been a permanent resident for 5 years, you can apply for naturalization. American Samoa, 90 days. Not so burdensome. And that's what Amata is saying here. The residents of American Samoa have vibrant democratic processes and already had a path to citizenship that I work to make even more accessible. The ruling is particularly unwelcome and inappropriate. The Utah federal judge's ruling is literally without precedent, and that's certainly true. No court has ever gone the way that the judge in the Utah case went. It reaches the opposite conclusion from that of distinguished judges on the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, which a couple years ago ruled on the same question and said no. And interestingly enough, part of the ratio decidendi, which is a fancy way of saying reason for decision, of the District of Columbia Circuit was the people of American Samoa didn't want it. Because the people of American Samoa had filed an intervenor there. Unfortunately, the ruling did not address the current concerns we had raised about the rights of American Samoan people to decide their own status, both as individuals and as a people. I have faith that God has the best for our Samoan people in mind and will work all things together for good. Now, when she mentions God, she's going to have a hard time getting any Democrat support on this one. While there is room for American Samoans to have different opinions about whether to seek United States citizenship, there are deep concerns about having a distant federal judge decide these issues. Now, I agree. There's a new vocabulary word here, critarchy, government by judges, and that's what we have. The people of American Samoa have the most ancient culture in the islands of the Pacific, and it is integrally connected to the unique indigenous practices embodied in the Fa'a Samoa, our Samoan way of life. It's land tenure and Matai systems that have been handed down proudly through generations.